Hello, and welcome back to the League Bound podcast, where we break down some of the best draft prospects and some of the rising stars of the NBA. I'm your co-host, Brandon. I'm here with my guys, Jake, Cameron, and Brody. How are y'all feeling today?
Oh, I know you're doing good. I mean, we're recording this on a Sunday night. Chiefs just picked up massive win in the Super Bowl. Obviously, my guy Brandon and Brody are pretty hype about this one. Brody, how are you feeling, man?
Yes, sir. Big time Super Bowl dub. You know, I could talk about the walk-off and everything all day long, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about some league-bound prospects.
And Cam, I know you've been busy this week. What's been going on with you, man?
Nothing, just turned 22, so.
There you go.
Yes, sir.
Big birthday.
Yes, sir.
We've got a much-missed segment. Hasn't been
Definitely
here all year, and now it's back. And we've got two clips. The second one, I'm keeping a surprise from everyone else.
I'm excited for that one.
For those of y'all who don't know negativity, you know, it's just a little fun way to get us into the pod. You know, I find a clip off the internet, you know, of some fights, shoving matches, trash talk, anything that, you know, really brings out some of the negative energy that makes the game of basketball fun at the end of the day. And, you know, we've got this Woodhouse Omaha GMC ad, not to give free promo, but so we've got Cleveland and Brooklyn, right?
Yeah, and I just want to point out here, we are leading right now by 8 points. I believe this was one of the 17 of 18 wins that we picked up recently.
Now, the negativity comes here and pushes him
that
down.
Right there was not one of the 17 or 18 wins y'all picked up recently.
No, it was not.
Ooh.
That's not a good shove back. It's not.
But look at Donovan, though. He's kind of holding them back. I feel like
if he wanted to get there, he could have got there.
Yeah.
I feel like Jarrett is such a teddy bear guy. Like, everyone's seen that meme of him wearing like some H&M clothes to a game.
Yep.
So like he's not known for bringing this attitude, but there's something about the Nets, man. They always have us in this mood.
You know what I love too? Like, we always clown Ben Simmons, but I remember there was also that fight a few years ago between Cat and Joel. And I remember he had Cat in a chokehold. So he's just like, we clown him, but he's a tough guy, low key.
Underrated fighter, man.
Underrated.
He
doesn't mess around.
He's beating the soft allegations. All
Like,
y'all had all
look
those
at
jokes
this
when he was
replay.
sitting out.
He made him look like a baby.
They're too little. That's weight room right there. That's crazy.
Pure weight room. And then this is the best part. He tries to shove him.
He wanted that shove too. You see the grit. You see the grit on his face.
He got to step into the shove and everything, and he didn't really move. That's embarrassing.
I will give Allen credit, though. Mitchell was in the way, you're right.
Yeah.
But that's still...
Still though, I feel like I gotta see you in the locker room after that because I didn't really get my good. It wasn't proportional. I came out weaker side.
I know Jarrett can bring some power too. If y'all have seen that video of him like flying into frame out of nowhere, he basically tackles Kevin Love in the tunnel.
Oh,
out of nowhere, he just comes flying through.
Yeah.
He could have done the same thing right there to Ben Simmons. That would have been very entertaining.
Just look at Ben's face in the thumbnail though.
Insane.
Like, what are you doing? Like, this shove is not it.
Just recently, I think last week actually, they made the Rising Stars game selections. And, you know, our specialty here on this podcast is breaking down these young NBA players. So we're going to give some of our perspectives. And we've also got prospects in here too, because we can't forget that a lot of those G League guys also get the chance to play against some of the older guys and show off their skill set. But what are some of your guys' initial thoughts on the festivities for next weekend?
First one that jumps out to me is I feel like Team Jalen is pretty stacked. You've got three of the best bigs in this entire Rising Stars class with Chet, Walker, and Derek Lively all on the same roster. Could be a little bit unbalanced, but in an all-star game format, if guys are missing shots, they're clearly going to have the rebound advantage. And, you know, I feel like defensively, Rising Stars is not a defensive game, so it might not come into play as much, but they're at least going to put a hand up and might impact some things. And I feel like on the wing with Jordan Hawkins and Ben Mathurin, Shaedon Sharpe is maybe the most athletic player in this entire Rising Stars class. They're going to have a lot of highlights on that team.
You know,
Shaedon Sharpe is hurt, if I'm not mistaken, though.
Okay.
I want to say he's being
I think he
replaced
is,
in that.
yeah.
Yeah, he's being replaced by Jeremy Sohan.
Okay, so you replace one athlete with another. I mean, that's a great addition then. I don't know how much he'll handle the ball over like Jalen Williams and Ben Mathurin, but
hopefully none.
You know what's I think is crazy underrated though? Like, I know it's just the Rising Stars game, but Jalen Williams and Holmgren, that Thunder team, they have so much chemistry, and I know those two specifically are gonna have fun together on that court. So right now, just looking at it, I think they're my favorite because I think Jalen Williams too. Like, Shai Gilgeous gets all the talk because he's a superstar on that team, but Jalen Williams, I think he's going to be a great second option right next to him. You've also got Holmgren. You could argue he might even be the second option too, but Williams and Holmgren, they are both going to be problems going forward.
I like Team Jalen, but I think you guys may have missed something. There's no point guard. On the entire roster, they have no one to lead the show, and I think Jalen Williams is probably going to be kind of given those duties. Maybe Jordan Hawkins. I know he's played it a little bit for the Pelicans, but at the end of the day, those two guys, they like to shoot a lot. I'm more leaning towards Team Powell. I like Team Tamika's roster the best, but it's a couple guys on there I don't know how serious they're going to take this game. I feel like Paolo, he has the actual playoffs to look forward to, so I think he'll be out there kind of chilling a little bit. I really like Team Powell. They have a little bit of everything. They have Kaysen Wallace to run the point. They have defense and Coulibaly and Jaquez Jr. They got shooting, Podmosky, Jabari Smith, and then they have the best rookie, best young player. I think best probably overall player in the Rising Stars game this year, Victor Wembanyama. So I would definitely go with Team Powell. Yeah,
and Wemby and Coulibaly also played together with Metropolitans 92 in that program as well. So that's kind of a fun little reunion for them. But somebody that I think might fly under the radar a little bit is Keontae George. That's a name I feel like could potentially, in an all-star format with how offensive focused his game is, could be somebody that randomly pops off and almost makes a name for himself among these really highly touted young players.
Yeah.
I think if he starts making a couple shots, it can turn into his kind of night really fast. I feel like Jaden Ivey, though, I think he has something to prove, especially.
And he's been playing
He's
good
been
recently.
on a tear, yeah.
I think this is kind of prime for him to. I don't know if it'll go the way he wants it to, but I see at least 20 shots for Jaden Ivey.
Can we just talk about the athleticism on Team Tamika, though? Because they've got Keontae George. People don't really talk about his athleticism, but he can get up there. Henderson, Ivey, that's like what they're known for. Then you have Banchero, who's just a beast. Duran, he's also a defensive beast. Like, this team, looking at it, I'd probably expect the most highlight plays from them. I know the other team, Team Powell, Team Jalen, Team Powell has Wembanyama, but I think this is probably the team I'm most excited to watch, just in kind of a laid-back kind of way.
I feel like they're going to get out and run with like Jalen Duran can run the floor, obviously, but with Scoot and Ivy, some of the fastest guards in the league right now, they're going to be pushing the pace. You'll have guys trailing like Keegan Murray who can spot up. So I feel like it's going to be a pretty entertaining night. I know the game's starting at around 8 p.m. our time here in Nebraska, but should be a good All-Star Friday night, I feel like.
Yeah, speaking of Scoot Henderson, one team we haven't mentioned yet.
Team Detlef.
Team Detlef, made up of G League Ignite players, which Scoot Henderson hails from. I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not looking forward to this one.
They're going to get washed.
They're going to get washed. They've been horrible all season in the G League, and now they have to come up and play NBA players, probably one of the best rising stars crops in the last few years. These last two classes have been insane. And this team doesn't have shooting. They have no point guard.
You're not a Mac McClung guy, Cam? He can run the one.
I'm sorry. It's not going to go well. I hope they prove me wrong. I hope they come out competitive, but I just don't see it. I think this is the type of things I hope the NBA stops doing. Because while, yes, it's a good idea on paper, it kind of bogs the night down. Because now you have, instead of doing less games, you have more games, and this team is just going to get blown out. And it's going to be like 30 minutes of everybody's time just wasted.
Yeah.
I almost wish they would just kind of split them apart, so it's more even. Because I feel like when you just do all G League guys, it's like, maybe they will surprise us and we'll be talking about them like, oh, Like,
That's what I was going to say. Like, more likely than not, they're going to get run off the court and probably play the least amount of games, because I know that they do like a round robin type of thing. But if they did end up coming out and surprising everybody and somehow finish up taking down all three of these teams, how much do you think, even though it's an all-star format, could that do for somebody like Matas Buzelis or Ron Holland if they come out here and show that they can take a one-on-one matchup? Maybe they get to the championship and it's Tyler Smith matched up with a Jalen Duren, and he just goes out there and either dominates him around the rim or blocks his shot. Like, do you think that could impact draft stock at all, even though it's in kind of this all-star, not really trying format?
Yeah, I think playing good anywhere helps, like, especially because this is another one of the events where the NBA scouts will be there. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I know some of the point of G League Ignite is to get them in front of the NBA scouts and get them NBA, but when they're not doing so well, NBA teams kind of stop showing up as frequently. So this is almost a reintroduction for the players, which is a good opportunity. But, however, it's always going to be taken with a grain of salt because the guys they're playing against are trying not to get hurt. Like, they're just out there having fun, trying to get a couple highlights, trying not to get hurt. And then on top of that, the flip side is if you do bad in front of a bunch of guys who aren't really trying, you might plummet. Like, it might not go as well as you hoped. So it's definitely a risk. I think they should do a better job protecting these guys from what could be a disaster of a night.
I mean, I remember last year, too, because I was big on the Scoot Henderson train coming into that draft. He played, and I don't think he really had a good outing at this event. I don't want to say it was why he fell to third, like in a lot of people's eyes, because Brandon Miller was just on a tear at Alabama. But I feel like around this time, because it was also when March Madness was starting to heat, people weren't as sold on him being the lock at number 2 as they were when him and Wemby played in October. But even if they do bad, I mean, at the end of the day, they still have to compete with the guys in their class. So I don't think it'll hurt them too much, but hey, we'll see.
Okay, so now we talked about the guys who made the team. Let's talk about some of the guys who were left off. So you have notably guys such as Ashore Thompson, Amin Thompson, Peyton Watson, Cam Whitmore. They're nowhere to be found on any of the rosters this year. While you have guys who have struggled more or less, like Scoot, and guys who are having good years, but just are a little overall, like Dyson Daniels. How do you feel? Who do you guys feel got left out?
I mean, I'm honestly surprised, especially with the, well, he's not even on your list, but, kind of a sleeper that I had because, he was on the Nuggets. He played in the finals, had a lot of big minutes, but I'm honestly surprised Christian Brown didn't get put in there, especially with kind of the popularity that he has, because I feel like they kind of factor that in too. He's a guy I would have loved to see participate in this and just get a little more recognition, because I feel like people have been quiet, but I feel like he's going to be that guy who, once the playoffs come around, he'll remind people, like, I'm here. But to your point, Amin Thompson, the Thompson twins, and Cam Whitmore, obviously you would love to see them play, but I think a big part of them, especially with Amin and Cam, is like they had a smaller sample size, and I think when they cook this up, they don't really take into account the amount of games played. And right now, they're just at that point where I think the Rockets, too, for Amin and Cam, it's like they have a lot of vets, and now they're slowly getting into that part of the season where they're allowing their younger guys to get a little bit more freedom, like even Jalen Green. Part of that's because Fred VanVleet's been hurt, but we're seeing him start to really explode now. But I would have loved to see all those guys, and I think they're deserving, but it's just an unfortunate part of they've been hurt or they've been out of the rotation. So
yeah, and I feel like one guy that I knew for sure, regardless of how up and down his season's been, was going to be on these rosters with Scoot Henderson. There's no way that the NBA could allow a guy that hyped up, who was at one point in the draft process was getting consideration as the number 1 pick over Victor Wembanyama. There's no way you could leave him off the Rising Stars game as, the PR for the NBA. But someone that, not just because I'm a Cavs fan, but that I would have liked to see make it into this format is Amani Bates for the Cavs G League team. They're are a couple G Leaguers that aren't from G League Ignite on Team Detlef, with Oscar Sheway, Alondis Williams, and Mac McClung. Imani Bates has been averaging almost 30 points a game in the G League, and I feel like it would have been awesome to see him compared to some of these other wings like Ben Matherin, just going down the list, Brandon Miller, Pajemski, Jabari Smith. Like, he's been amazing in the G League, hasn't gotten a lot of run in the NBA so far, but I feel like with his offensive firepower and just the way he can shoot, it would have been really entertaining if he went on a heater on All-Star Friday night. But
yeah, I agree. I think you might have stumbled on to something there. While I understand you really want to push the G League at night, I feel like, especially in years like this where it's not as good as it's been in previous years, there's not really star power there. I feel like maybe instead having a team full of G League guys who haven't really necessarily got their chance to break through yet, allowing them a shot at some of the top young players, going against some of their teammates maybe that are just ahead of them because they got picked higher, would maybe be more entertaining, because I think that team for sure would play harder.
mm-hmm.
And they don't have as much to lose if they don't play good, because the teams already know if it's bad, they already know. So
Right.
I feel like that might be an interesting thing for the NBA to look at going forward.
So for this segment, we figured we'd do something a little fun. 2024 is a weird draft class, and everybody's gonna have people in different spots. But I think that's what makes this more fun when you're looking at analysts and when they're talking about different players. So we figured we'd react to some of these mock drafts. First up, we have Tankathon, and they have. I feel like what they have at the top is pretty traditional. Now, I know they've got Topic second. I don't know.
We're
gonna get into that a little bit later.
I don't know
We're gonna
about
get
that, man.
into that a little bit later. I mean, honestly, even for me, I think that's a little bit high at this point. But I top five.
And you notice first few G League guys outside of the top 5, I think the only other time that happened was with the Jaden Hardy year, was when the first G League Ignite guy wasn't inside the top 5. Kind of disappointing that it's been a little bit inconsistent with bringing in those top prospects so far. But there's still some time left for some of these guys to move up a bit. So,
yeah. To be honest with you, by the end of this process, I wouldn't be surprised if they only get one guy in the top 10. I could see one of Buzelis or Holland kind of falling. But this one is pretty good. I would say my biggest gripe with it, just off of first glance, would be Reed. I don't think, as a Kentucky fan, there's no basis for Reed Shepherd over Rob Dillingham at this point.
Okay.
Like, especially not by 7 and 11. Like, that's a decent gap. And to be honest, Rob has just been better this year. Like, he's been more efficient. He scores more. I know a lot of people get fooled by like some of the defensive highlights from Shepherd, but he's pretty atrocious off ball. So I would say, with their defense being basically a wash, Rob being a better more consistent offensive player, I think you have to have him above Reed Shepherd.
Do you want to talk about this guy right here when I scroll down enough? This man highlighted right here to Milwaukee, currently on Tankathon. You see the numbers, Brandon. You see those 27 and 13.
I'm not moved.
Get him off the screen.
I'm not moved.
Please, get him off the screen.
Is Zach Edey a lottery pick, guys?
I don't even want to scroll back up, bro. Just
get him off the screen.
Get him off the screen.
That's what you have to say?
I do want to get y'all's thoughts on Kyle Filipowski.
Okay.
Where he falls in this draft class, because there was a lot of shock when he decided to come back for this year because he was in first round talks. Now, he still obviously has that upside and he's producing at Duke. But do you guys think that he is a certified top 10?
I think in this year specifically, I think he has a lot better chance to go higher than last year. Just because you look at the top of this class, the bigs in this class are not distinguishing themselves as much as prior years. Like Alex Sarr, we'll talk about him a little bit more in a minute, but he's probably the highest rated like power forward center, like big. And then you go through the rest of these names, unless you count Ron Holland in the same player category as like a Kyle Filipowski, he's pretty much right behind Alex Sarr as the next best true big in this class. So I think it's fair because obviously within that top 10, it's not going to be all guards and wings. Some team in there is going to need either a new starting center because someone's got a contract coming up, or they're just looking for more front court depth. And I feel like with how much versatility Kyle Filipowski has on offense, he can fit the mold of so many different teams where I feel like he should be a lottery lock at this point.
Yeah, I think his measurements play a big part of it. I think getting his real height, not his college listed height, like his real height. I think if he comes in above 6'10" and his shooting improves or stays consistent, I think he's definitely worth the top pick. I think it was a really smart decision on his part to come back. I know people were surprised by it, but I think knowing how bad this class is, like, I think he ensured himself guaranteed money. Like last year, he might have been in the first round, but it would have been most likely outside of the top 20, which means no guaranteed money, slumming it out in the G League, fighting for a spot to even be on the roster next year. And I think this year he'll be a solidified, most likely lottery pick. And it's just a complete difference, night and day, with the commitment level the team has to you. Like now, instead of getting maybe off the roster in 2 or 3 years if you're bad, now you for sure get 3 to 4 years, maybe even 5 or 6 in some cases, to really show that you just get more grace. And I think it was one of the best decisions he could have possibly made.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people in the comments are going to give me flack for saying Filipowski's the next best center with this guy, Donovan Clingan, right here from UConn. I know there's been a lot of hype on him. He's clearly got the size, 7'2", 265. But I feel like it's kind of just a toss-up with who's going to be better. I mean, they have similar, offensive strengths. I think Clingan can shoot a little bit, right?
Oh, it's not very consistent. With Clingan, he's another one kind of like Edey. I know we haven't talked about him yet, but it's just at some point, like with the really big, slower bigs, it's like, how is it really going to work in the NBA? Like, I know he's definitely more mobile than Edey, but still he's just like a big, plotting big. It's like, I don't know how well he's going to do in switches. In college, they can kind of mask it by running little funny coverages with zones and having him in the deep drop, but I don't know how well it'll work.
Yeah. I'm also too, like, I'm really high on, dang it, the Baylor guy. I don't want to mispronounce his name.
Eves Missy.
Yeah. Like I know he's a little bit undersized. I think he might even be tall. Well,
he might be shorter.
He might be shorter. Yeah. But I still feel like I'm a lot higher on him just because I think too, he can put the ball on the floor a little bit as a center. And I don't know if that's necessarily going to translate right into the NBA, but I think he does have a lot of offensive skill set that I think is very, very underrated. But I think, like you said, he's more mobile than a lot of these, like Edey, the Clingan types. And I don't know, with Clingan and Edey, I feel like these are guys who, like, what you're going to get from them, like, you could go into free agency, like, and be like, okay, I need a vet. And, like, you can find somebody who's done the same thing, but they're more experienced in it.
Go get like a Isaiah Hartenstein or something, somebody who can just kind of anchor near the paint and just provide that size. Somebody that, and I know we're talking mostly centers here because of the Kyle Filipowski, but it also kind of plays into the Zach Edey narrative. We've just been talking about how these are all centers or bigs that we would probably take over Zach Edey, who for some reason recently has been getting a ton of first-round hype. But I think Khalil Ware is someone that in the draft process, maybe postseason, once they start doing like pro days and stuff, he's going to really impress people in like a training camp format where it's just doing drills, driving on an open rim and showing your athleticism. He's pretty mobile, I would say, and I feel like his offensive game maybe doesn't get the same shine as it will in the NBA. I feel like he may not have that same leap as like a Derek Lively did offensively, but it could be a similar thing where, his offensive game does boost up a little bit.
So you're saying he's a cone killer?
Not necessarily, because he's had really good games at Indiana this year where he's putting up double-doubles, but he just has that type of game where he's going to really impress you in an open gym, kind of like a Jericho Sims did for the New York Knicks, who coincidentally are projected Kelly Ware here at 18.
No, I definitely agree. I feel like this is a range where I would start looking at a lot of the bigs in the draft. Like, at this point, it becomes a little bit worth it. I feel like the bigs in this class, like even the top end ones, but outside of Sarr, I would say, like you guys said, you can find veteran bigs for a lot less money than what you would have to pay a lottery pick. So it kind of, especially when the guy is someone that will most likely have to spend time in the G League, someone who's not going to have an immediate impact on your roster, and that might be a little older, like a Filipowski or somebody like that. I feel like the 17 to 25 range is definitely where I could see teams opting to take a chance on one. And I think that could cause a lot of teams in the top of the draft who need a big that don't get the fortunate opportunity to draft Sarr high. I could see them trade down and maybe get someone like a Kelly Ware at a 18, at a 19, 20.
Do you want to take a look at
Yes. I did want to.
this one right here? One of them that really stuck out to me, Cannon Carlisle, top 10 on, what is this, DraftNet? Nowhere near the first round on Tankathon, so they're really high on Cannon Carlisle.
I like Carlisle, but not that much. That's 9 is a little high. But I feel like he's definitely someone who can sneak in the back end of the first round. I remember watching his highlight tape in high school, and he looked like a Ja Morant who could shoot. Obviously, not the same level of competition he's playing now at Stanford. And it's been an up-down year for him so far. Him and his teammate, Stojakovic, they've both been good and bad at times. So I could see him sneaking in, but definitely not top 9. And they have Luka Poplar at
That's what I was
number
gonna
10.
say.
I don't think that's right.
Oh, yeah.
You got Shannon up here, top at the end of the lottery. Terrence Shannon, he's got the talent, but for years we've been saying that, and he keeps coming back to college. So,
And he has some off the court issues.
oh
man.
yeah,
They do have Zach Edey, 47 though.
there you go. Big respect.
Kaishan George at 7.
I also want to
Hey,
talk
check
about
this. Dalton Connect
this-
at 6.
I like that.
They've got Zvonimir at 20.
And then I want to zoom in on this
This is all over the
superstar right here.
Trey
New York.
Alexander.
New York got a new guard coming through. Nikola Topic all the way down at 17.
On NBADraft.net.
Currently, as
Currently,
of the
yes.
Super Bowl Sunday mock draft. Very interesting.
Ron Holland, 21. I'm just seeing that. Dane Collier at 24. I didn't even peep he fell that far.
This is definitely any of the hot take channels out there. This is the mock draft to react to, because you got some names in here that, I mean, you got Klingon at 49. What were we showing on Tankathon? Top 20, I think?
They had him
So-
14, 15.
They do have a name that we didn't see in the last mock draft. I think could sneak in the back end of the first round as well. If you scroll up a little bit, Trayvon Brazil.
Oh, yeah.
43.
Trevon
I
Brazil.
think he might be the best big in this draft outside of Sarr. I feel like he has the best real shooting possibility. Like, he has some of his shooting has realized itself, and his athletic ability is off the wall. Like, he's someone that you just want to see a little more production. You want to see him put it together more, and he needs to get healthy. But that's somebody I think could be a major sleep in the draft.
Yeah. He definitely strikes me as like kind of similar to his teammate Jalen Williams, who found a role on the Thunder. Like, goes in the second round, but he's contributing like right away.
Yeah.
And even last year before he tore his ACL, like there was serious talks about him going in the first round. So that is a good point that you bring
he
up.
put that poster on tape, and
Oh, yeah.
unfortunately it was over after that. But he's had a pretty good season so far as well. So, yeah, just kind of shows you the range that all these guys can be projected at, but also just showing you all these bigs that we all pretty much like over Zach Edey, which I don't know where these mock drafts. I mean, we've seen firsthand in some of these games, with our own eyes with Nebraska, where they're taking Edey pretty much out of the game, and it's really amazing to see how a lot of these people are putting them as high as they are.
Okay, so we teased it a little bit, but let's really kind of get into why we think Edey's a little bit overrated. For me personally, I know it's his it's like his size, but which you would think would be a good thing, especially seeing somebody like Victor Wembanyama. But his size is almost more similar to like a Taco Fall. It's like big, but it's not functional. It's not. His mobility is a really big issue for me, and I feel like he's been better at it this year in college, but the NBA is a completely different thing because of how open the court is, how much space the guards have to attack. So I think I just can see him getting absolutely cooked by someone in a switch. And his foot speed is really slow. And he's like getting beat down the court by normal bigs. So NBA level bigs who are a different level of athlete could really give him fits. And for that reason alone, I think lottery or first round for that matter is a little bit of a stretch, but then you get to some of his offensive issues. And while he has touch that can appear to be really good at times, and his system at Purdue gives him opportunities to duck in and get a lot of dunks, but outside of that, he hasn't shown much. He hasn't shown the ability to step out. He did
hit that three
That
this
is true.
weekend.
First career, banked it in.
Oh yeah. That was cash.
But like at this point in your career, do you really want to be doing first of anything? Like
No.
That's what I was gonna say though, because I feel like when you're 7'5", like, okay, yeah, you're gonna have an advantage. But I think, you talked about the defensive versatility with that. I think for me, that's the main thing too. But also, like his offensive game, like for me to be sold on him as a draft pick, I feel like he just have to be doing, more than just being taller than everybody. I don't want to sound like an Edey hater, but like at the end of the day, that's just what we're doing. But I feel like I want to see like I wish that he had more spacing ability, because at the end of the day, like that's what would keep a player like him on the floor. Also, I would like to see more playmaking out of him, especially when you're that tall and you draw so much attention. I wish you'd kind of see some better reads from him. But I mean, I don't know.
I feel like double team shouldn't bother him as much as they do.
Oh yeah, especially in the post when he picks his dribble up. They're just standing their hands straight up, and he's looking down on them, and he's still, he can't go over. But I feel like somebody in a Zach Edey conversation that gets absolutely shafted every single year is Ryan Kalkbrenner at Creighton. They're very similar players, but Kalkbrenner can shoot. At least he's shown this year. He can block shots with the best of them in the country. He has some of the mobility issues that Zach Edey has, but he brings so much more versatility and spacing offensively. And I don't understand why someone like Zach Edey gets boosted up as high as he has this year when former defensive player of the year in the conference in Ryan Kalkbrenner is nowhere to be found on these mock drafts. It's very confusing to me.
I think a lot of people just look at the size number, like the height number, like 7'5", he's 7'5". Like it looks good, but I think it's almost like a smoke and mirrors type thing. Like, yes, he's 7'5", but that's not the good thing. Like, it's not a good one, because how many 7'5" guys in the NBA have ever worked out? And like just from a skill perspective, and then you take that number, they had to deal with injuries. So I just realistically, I don't see him having a major impact on the NBA anytime. I don't think he could crack a roster. I think he's someone. I think Taco Fall is a very similar career arc. Personally, I don't see it. I would love to be proved wrong. I think if he can improve his speed and mobility, he'll have a future in the league. But as it stands today, I think he's just someone that guards like Steph Curry, like Tyrese Maxey, they just target endlessly until you put him on the bench.
I imagine a Zach Edey switch matchup with someone like De'Aaron Fox, and it's just like within 1 second, it's a blown coverage, and it's an easy floater for Swipa.
That boy is getting turned into a 5-course meal. But I kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. Like, I can understand trying to take them in the second round, especially if you're a contending team and you just just want to take a chance on somebody. But when you're in the lottery and you have you need to really utilize your draft picks, I feel like you're not really adding something that you can't find somewhere else. I talked about it in, getting a veteran guy, but I also just feel like he doesn't have insane athleticism. He doesn't. it's not like we talked about Trevin Brazil where, he has that athleticism where you could plug him in right away and he's contributing. I feel like Edey, he just doesn't have that, okay, I might not be good, but I might not be good long term, but I can come in and do something for you right away. He doesn't have that same type of plug and play ability. But
okay, so we talked about some of the negatives. You have to craft the ideal situation. If you were a team and you just really wanted Zach Edey for some reason, you had to make him work. What would that situation look like for you guys?
I would say if a team like the Spurs had a second-round pick, if you could go and bring somebody like a Zach Edey off the bench, maybe you get lucky and somehow a Wemby and Zach Edey lineup does something either defensively or in the rebounding category. That could just be something that you strike a little bit of gold with some luck in the second round. I think it's going to be teams that have bigs that are more mobile focused, maybe perimeter, and then you have someone else that has this elite size who can kind of just sit there and either take a couple fouls on some of the heavier bigs like a Nurkic or a Jokic, and just let some of those more shooting bigs get that spacing off.
I feel like also a team like the Thunder, I'm just thinking about right now, like they have Holmgren, but I feel like their big room is it's a little iffy. But I feel like they have a lot of good spacing, and they get a lot of their defense or a lot of their offense off of straight line drives and isolation. So I feel like he's a guy, he can just come in, rebound, and there's not really much required of him, and that team already gets up and down okay without him. So that's a team where could maybe find something, but I don't know. I feel like it's also a stretch a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to think like off the dome, like what the ideal.
Yeah, it's a second round pick, and I just want to say it because I don't think any of us have said it yet, but the only reason we're saying Zach Edey and lottery in the same sentence is on Draft Express, they just posted earlier this week that Zach Edey is projected lottery in their newest 2024 mock. If you don't know, that's Jonathan Givony. I feel like that's someone who usually is pretty decent and accurate with his assessments. But that was one that when I was looking through my feed, that popped out to me pretty much instantly as something that we had to talk about because that was a huge disagreement for me.
There was another draft. We can just look at it. We don't have to go too into it. But I just want to acknowledge it. The last one they had.
This one right here?
Yes, the CBS Sports.
Oh my God! Hold on, let me restart my.
Wait.
What?
Wait.
My boy Kyle Boone.
Hold on, when was this posted?
I didn't even. It says 2/11/24.
His was posted on the February 9th. Oh my God!
Which is this?
God! I didn't even see the one.
Okay, that's a that's a complete. No. He put the wrong name. He put the wrong name in position.
Oh yeah,
look, he has him from USC.
What is bro
but
talking
no,
about?
he's from USC. So maybe he did put the right one. He just put the wrong school.
He has Isaiah Collier at number 1.
All right, can we restart this segment? Hold up, my voice just went out.
And then Justin Edwards at 2 from. Okay, yeah, that's just messed up. But he has him as a forward, so that's correct.
Click on the full mock draft. I just want to see if that's.
No, he's got them
Let me see
taking
the reasoning.
Collier to the Blazers.
I feel like that's just a click. Like I'm trying to get clicks. So
No,
Wow.
zoom in. What is the reasoning?
because he hasn't even been the most productive top.
He's been the least productive
Yeah.
Kentucky player. So
Here you go for a
he has had a good
draft take that's insane.
I'm still shook on Collier to the Blazers after you just drafted Scoot Henderson, who
That's
does
what-
a lot of
yeah.
similar things to Collier, and you still have Anthony Simons.
I think this is more of a big board, like a personal, weird big board.
It's got to be.
It says pick 1.
But like, okay, here's no way he thinks that. There's no way he thinks that they should take Isaiah
We
Collier,
gotta.
they just-
Who is this?
they have
We're in
Scoot,
disbelief.
Simons.
Who we have to get Kyle Boone to talk about this on the
We gotta
show
bring him
someday.
on the
We have
pod.
to figure out a
Explain
way
yourself.
because, I mean, some of these, Sarr, Ron Holland, sure, but wow, this as the top 2
Okay.
would be crazy on draft night.
This looks like, to be honest, I don't want to cast any aspersion on Mr. Boone here, but this looks like his job may have thrown this on him, and he hasn't been watching basketball yet. He might be more of an after season guy. Go back and watch all the film once you get a full body of work. So this is probably a copy and paste from an earlier mock draft. If we're being realistic, I don't think he's watched this season.
Because that's like this is what I would have had like beginning of the season before any of the games.
It says right here is new number 1. So it's definitely not the first that he's put out. But
scroll down some more. I just want to see where.
This is insane.
Stephon Castle.
It's literally like a pre-draft. It's like a pre-year. It's like he hasn't watched any college basketball. Because any basketball, Isaiah Mansa is like a consistent second rounder now. DJ Wagner still lottery.
Topic down at 15. I don't mind that.
Marco Jackson, this is for sure. I haven't watched it yet.
Cody Williams at 17.
Oh, Marco, no.
I'm putting this more on CBS. I'm taking off of Boone. I think they just sprung this on him maybe last second. Even though if you want to give a job, I'll take it. But this is
that is
insane.
unfortunate though.
And hey, they still got Edey at 28. So
Baba Miller,
Ade
Mara, who's someone I think might be worth taking a second round pick. I think UCLA has just been a dumpster fire this year, and I think that's more the coaches' situation going on than the players. I feel like watching his tape before he got to UCLA, he looks like someone who was worthy of being like towards the top of the draft.
Wow.
But this is
go to the other guys. We don't have to go too in depth. But I just want to skim over it and see what
that one seemed at least maybe outside of this something.
So I know
worth looking at.
So I know you asked me about Reed Shepherd at too, and like I said before, I think Rob Dillingham's better.
Yeah, I do too.
But I will say this: a situation like the Spurs or the Thunder, who have multiple picks, or more of the Thunder, who have multiple picks and are like a win now type of team, I could see them maybe picking Reed above Rob high in the draft just because he's someone who could come in right away. He's smart. He could fit in, shoot. You don't need much from him. And he won't be out there long enough for his defense to really become the sore thumb that it can be at times currently. But even then, I think if a team like the Thunder were to get like the second pick, I think I would still take Rob because I think he's closer to what Trey Mann was for them, which is more valuable than I think Reed would be to that specific type of team. I'm not mad at having him towards the top of the draft. He's definitely a valuable player. I think people see Austin Reeves. You can kind of see similar games. And in a class that's this bad, I don't hate it, but I also think it's a little high. Personally, my hot take is that Rob is the person who's sneaking into the top 3 of my personal. He's electric, and I think he has all the things that the good NBA guards have, besides maybe the size. But
I feel like Dillingham right here to these Wizards could be a perfect match for them because they're looking for something to bring that team up.
His teammates would absolutely hate that though, because him and Jordan Poole together would be like epic shot jacking time.
I do think the Wizards. I haven't looked at their offensive stats, but I know for a while they were like a pretty good offensive team. It's just their defensive stats were atrocious.
And Dillingham wouldn't help that, but
yeah,
I think they'll likely move off of Tyus Jones in the summer, and that would be a viable point guard replacement. And even though their teammates might not like it, eventually I think Dillingham and Poole might be able to make that work.
Yeah, you could move that, 2-guard system going. Both of them can ball handle. Both of them can run the offense. So
yeah, so this isn't the worst. This isn't a bad mock draft. They have Connect kind of high, but he's one of the most talented players in the draft. He's just a little older, so.
And I remember always seeing in the mock drafts this guy Gary Parrish. I have noticed he puts a lot of emphasis on college success, and someone like Dalton Connect is right up his alley in terms of guys that he's going to push up pretty high. So.
Yeah, this is really unfair to Boone, man. They put
they did him dirty.
They put him next to somebody who clearly knows what's going on at the moment, and his mock draft reflects it. And Boone's is just like maybe
he's from the future and he knows Isaiah Collier is about to go off in the late season. But
to be fair, Justin Edwards is someone that really makes his mock draft look a little crazy at this moment just because he hasn't been playing that well. But he's someone I could see having a good second half of the year. He's starting to show signs of really being a competent player and being a guy we thought he was. But I think even if he was to have his dream scenario of the second half of the season, I don't think he gets all the way up to 2.
All right, let's get into some of these top foreign prospects this year because there's quite a few of them at the top, and I think we've got some differing opinions. Who do you guys want to start off with as some of your favorites of these top international prospects?
I mean, I think there's a lot to like about all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But y'all know who my guy is, but I don't want to. I don't want.
He's your. Are you putting that out there? He's your guy. Can we quote you on that?
I think.
Brandon, let's hear it.
I think offensively, Nikola Topic. I think he's probably one of the better offensive prospects. That might be a.
Say it with your chest.
I'm gonna say it with my chest.
You said that you said his name lightly. You were like kind of whispering.
Nikola Topic is
go.
one of the best offensive prospects in this draft.
Okay.
I will say. Plus, he just makes everything look so easy. Now, whether that's a plus or whether that's a negative, that could be debated. But I do think there are some flaws in his game, but the stuff that I do like is just how easily he gets into the paint. And with the NBA, I think we see how important paint drives are to a team. Like, just look at the Shays, the Lukas. Like, having a guy who can do that creates so much more for the guys around you. And he's a good playmaker. So I think just having those two traits alone really helps him. Now, whether or not he's going to be a, insane all-star, I think we still need to see a little bit more. I was excited when we found out he was going back to the EuroLeague, but then he got hurt. So it was like, I think he should be back here soon, but we'll see what happens with that. But he's a guy who also, I think, an underrated part about him is like, for his size, I feel like he has pretty good speed. Like, because he takes defenders and pick and roll coverages just pretty much right off the dribble. Now that could also just be the guys who he's going up against. They're not necessarily the best defenders, but I think the fact that he's doing that and he makes it just look so easy and comfortable, I feel like that's a good sign. Now, the one thing I will say, I would like to see him have a little bit more of an in-between game. As far as a three-point shooter, he's not really like the most knockdown guy, but I think he's capable. I think he's shooting like 30% or something like that when he was in the Liga ABA.
Mm-hmm.
But, he was actually shooting, let's just say around 30%. And I don't think that's necessarily going to be his bread and butter, though. And, like, you look at a guy like Shea, he doesn't shoot that many threes a game. But, having that mid-range game, I think a lot of that, too, you guys can weigh in, too. But I feel like a lot of that just comes down to having strength and, putting on a little bit more on your frame. Because the closer you get to the paint, the harder it is to just, rise up over people.
True.
Like, and I remember actually seeing Shai Gilgeous in person, you really realize like how much of his body he's using. He's like using his shoulder to, even on like little step backs and stuff, he's giving that little push off. Like, having strength is so important to getting to that mid-range game. And that is one thing I've noticed he does kind of struggle with. He doesn't have insane athleticism right now necessarily. But I think there's a lot to like about his game. I feel like he's just a really polished prospect, to be honest.
I'm on the opposite spectrum. I think his passing is by far the most polished. I think that's something he's going to come in and be able to contribute right away. But if you're trying to draft a Nikola Topic to be one of your lead initiators, at this point in his career, he's very young, so he could still develop. But if you watch some of his games and some of the tape offensively, his creativity with the ball handle really concerns me. I think a lot of lazy comparisons are going to be made to Luka Doncic just because he's an international prospect, around 6'6", 6'7", but he runs a lot of guard. But even at that age, Luka Doncic was incredibly creative, step-back threes, using his body to get to space. a lot of straight line drives for Topic in his recent games. And I just don't, I feel like some of the physicality in the NBA is really going to hinder him. And when he's trying to develop and improve, I feel like if he's out there, maybe that'll help him playing against higher competition in the NBA, but that could also be a big time hindrance to him is if every night he's going out there and just getting bodied and can't really work on the stuff he's looking to improve on.
Yeah, I'm more with Jake here. I don't see top 5. I see maybe latter half of the lottery for Topic. I think he's someone who, besides his passing, he doesn't really do anything else really well yet. Like, he's an okay finisher, but I don't know if his speed isn't enough to get him there at the next level. It doesn't. He looks like he's slower. Like Jake said, he doesn't look very creative, and he doesn't shoot the 3 well. And he's someone who you would like to have a mid-range, but he doesn't shoot it at a high clip or very efficiently currently. So that leaves a lot of questions of how is he going to score on the next level? Like, what is he going to do to get buckets and provide, to make himself a threat? Because his passing looks good now because he can score at the level he's at. But if he's not a threat in the NBA to blow past anybody, then he kind of becomes like early Lonzo Ball in a way without the speed, where it's like you're almost a hindrance to your team because, yes, while you can get others involved, no one's going to respect your offensive game unless you make them. So people are going to be playing the passing lanes. People are going to be denying passes and forcing him to beat them. And right now, currently, I just don't see it on his tape that he has this offensive skill to do it. And then on top of that, he's not the greatest defender. Like we said, he's slow. Nothing really stands out personally.
Okay, I want to say, though, I don't think he's necessarily a slow player, though. Because I feel like, at least for me, I watched one of his games, and I feel like you did kind of see a little change of pace. I know, like, the straight line drives, I think that is a good point. And for him, I think a lot of that, too, is also why he's so high, because all of his offense pretty much just comes out of the pick and roll. So that, I think, is a good point. But I do also think, now I'm not necessarily saying he's going to be, like, insane, but, like, I feel like, there is I almost think about like Josh Giddey. If he's in a situation where he has a lot of creators, drivers around, just offensive threats, like I feel like, okay, I don't want to say Josh Giddey now because I think.
Well, I think it's a good point though. Like I see Topic, and at this point, I don't think he's ready to come in and run the offense for 35 minutes a night. He's very young. He needs to work on his handle. There's going to be physical vets. Like I just imagine like he draws a matchup with Pat Bev one night. Oh my goodness.
Nightmare.
That's going to be awful for him. I think if he goes to a team where he could be like a secondary ball handler, maybe not necessarily off the bench, but just, not every set he's bringing it up and leading a ball screen or something. Maybe down here with like the Atlanta Hawks, if he can learn a little bit from Trae Young about how to handle some of the physicality in the NBA. Because Trae Young came in and he was undersized and he had to figure out how to balance what his strengths are to become an all-star caliber player. So, I don't know if the top of the draft is where I'd like him to go. I think maybe around these 10, maybe late lottery is probably a better fit for him.
I think the thing that's also so annoying is he's hurt right now. Mm-hmm. And like he even said like part of the reason why he went back on the loan was because he wanted to play against better competition. So I think he knows at the end of the day, like it's getting a little too easy for him out there. But, I think right now for me, I'm probably a 5 to 10 guy. I think it's also just going to come down to team fit at the end of the day. Like you could say that with almost any player, but I think I'm just extremely high on, and I don't know if I'd go as far as to put him over Dillingham because I'm kind of high on him and I think he's going to blossom. But I think in a way, Dillingham's also kind of hurt by the fact that he has to share a lot of the rock with those other guys there. But as far as where I think right now, I'd take him as high as like 5 to 6, somewhere in there.
See, I agree that it's definitely a fit thing, but kind of going back to what you said earlier, how you kind of compared him to Giddey, and you see people lazily compare him to Doncic sometimes. The reason why I personally have him more in like the 15 to 20 range is because the reason some of Giddey and Doncic's game works like it does is because they're closer to 6'8" than they are to 6'6". Like, Topic you can make it in the NBA as a slow player. I think Luka's proven that. Or not necessarily slow, but someone who relies on change of pace, not the most freakish athlete. But when you lack creativity, I think you need to be kind of taller. And at 6'6", I think it'll make it really hard for him. I agree that he would have to be on a team with a lot of different people who can create their own shot. And almost like a bench piece to come in and run the show for a little bit, make a couple really smart plays, and then kind of go out when it's time to close the game. So I think the more ideal fit would be on like a championship contending team. Like someone like a Golden State, I think he would really fit in on just as a change of pace player. But at the top of the draft, I just feel like it's a trap. Like if I was his agent, I would be trying really hard to drive his stock down because I think it would be a nightmare putting him with someone like the Wizards or someone like the Spurs where the fan base was going to be relying on him to have success early. Mm-hmm. And I think some of the reason why Josh Giddey worked is because Thunder fans knew they weren't good. Like, they're not good, and they already had Shea. So it's like, we're not where we're going to go. We have a couple years to get better. So you don't have to be great right away, and we have someone who's great. So it's like, if we bust on this pick, it's not the end of the world. The Wizards, he would be coming in as the number 2 pick. He's the first pick of a rebuild. He's the ticket item almost. And I just don't think at this point in time in his career he's ready for that. I think ideally he would get to sit behind someone for a couple of years and really learn how to be crafty on the NBA level, learn how to draw fouls at a high level. And I think then he would be maybe ready to run offense. But currently, I don't see it. I don't see a player in the NBA that plays like he does at his size that's a starter or somebody that if I had to redraft their class, I would take them at number 2.
Yeah, and just real quick, I don't know, you probably want to talk a little bit, Branden, but the Wizards is also just kind of a weird fit because they already have Denny Avdia, who, not just because he's an international player, but they're very similar in size, very similar in skill set. Denny, some of his better plays on the court are when he's able to dribble the ball in transition and, feed it to one of his teammates. That's what you would kind of hope Topic can do is do some of that. So it would just be kind of just too much of the same thing in that Wizards offense, I feel like.
And see, even Avdia, he's 6'8", 6'9". Like, at 6'6", I feel like it's a big difference from being 6'8". Because at 6'8", your size allows you to get different angles for passes and finishes at the rim. At 6'6", you're more looking at like a Shea, and like you said, he relies on physicality and a lot of things to get his shot off. And Topic not only isn't that at the moment in time, like he's not physically imposing, he doesn't have a shot at the moment. So
yeah, it's just like on those drives, like you'll see a player like Shea, he'll get into the mid-range, he'll look around a little bit, maybe dive to change direction. Most of these drives from Topic, he'll get a screen right and he'll just go one speed all the way to the rim, and there's no center in there, even in international play where a lot of times they can just sit in the paint with no 3-second call. So it's good. I feel like it's going to be a pretty big learning curve for him. But it's not just Topic in the top of this draft. We've got Alex Sarr and Zach Risacher. And these are two guys that I think all of us are probably a little bit higher on than Topic, I would say.
Yeah, I'm a really big fan of Alexandre Sarr. I feel like he's someone who can step out and make a jump shot every once in a while, even though his numbers aren't the best all the time. He's not very consistent on that end yet. He has a nice form. It looks like there's nothing glaringly wrong about it. To me, that means that in the future, it's projectable that it might get fixed and start falling consistently. He's 7'1", he has good size, he's an athlete, he can jump, he has really good feet, he switches on guards really well, and he's smart in where he picks his roles and the angles he takes on his drives. He's someone that I feel like his hype is justified. I don't know if I would take him number one personally, but that's about the right range. He's a top 5 pick for sure.
I was gonna say like pretty much everything you said, but as far as a team like the Pistons getting him, I feel like they just have a lot of like I don't think he would necessarily help them because they have a lot of defensive pieces right now who are especially really young and on rookie contracts. So I feel like they just need more of a offensive-minded or offensively skilled player. But, pretty much any other team, I think they'd probably take him number one. He's 7'1", and, he's got a lot of versatility. So I think at the end of the day, that just helps him out a lot. But Zaccharie Risacher, I like him too. Now, I'm not necessarily sure I'd take him as high as number 3, but I feel like he's got a really good role player type of game. And, he's a really good shooter. Can't really create his own shot a whole lot. But I think he's also a pretty good player too. I remember during the Hoop Summit, though, like I was excited to see him because he was kind of like one of my sleeper guys. And they were going up against all those other prospects, and he was kind of quiet. And so I think, to me, he's not really going to be a player who, when he comes to the league, he's going to necessarily assert himself. Like, I think he's just going to need some time to kind of find his groove based on everything I've seen.
Yeah, I would say Risacher. He's someone that I worry about a little bit. Could see him either becoming like Trey Murphy for the Pelicans, that's his upside. But I could also more than likely see him becoming a Ousmane Dieng, who's kind of fallen out of the Thunder rotation, who could still end up being a good player, but I think he's someone that it takes a while because he can't create his own shot. And shooting, especially when you move back to the NBA line, which you have to do in the league, is something that doesn't necessarily always translate right away. Mm-hmm. And if his shot's not falling, that's like a really big part of his game. He's not going to do much off the dribble. And while he's a good defender, his size, he's a little skinny. He's a little light right now. So that might not translate right away either. So he's someone I think is more of a project, but he's like a promising project. Like, he's not a beater house or anything. He's like something, he has a foundation. He has everything checks out a little bit, but he might have further to go. Then someone like Alexandre Sarr. Someone I really like is John Saloon. Mm-hmm. He's very similar in a lot of ways. He's not as productive at times, but recently he's really ramped up his production. They're listed at the same height, but he looks like he could be a little bit bigger and his arms might be a little longer. He can shoot it, like he has a good form, and he's a little more defensively active to me. Like, he plays passing lanes, really aggressive, and he has a burst about him. Like, he gets off the floor pretty fast, and he's someone with his size and length that I think even if his shooting doesn't translate, his athleticism will most likely translate, and he's someone I could see being a 3-4, someone more in like the mold of J.D. McDaniels with the Timberwolves is like the best case scenario for him. And I think that's just more of a player I would personally take currently. Now, I know the level of competition is insane, but I would rather, in a draft like this, I would rather take the risk.
Yeah. One team that I kind of wish, just based on where their trajectory is at, the Chicago Bulls, I kind of wish they were maybe a little bit higher up so they could get somebody like a Zach Risacher. Just because, I mean, ever since they've lost Lauri Markkanen, they've kind of at that 3 position. I mean, they've tried it out with Pat Williams. It hasn't been great. It's nothing that they're super set on right now. I feel like if they could either get a little bit higher up in this lottery, maybe they get lucky and get inside that top 4 with the lottery balls so that they could, guarantee themselves one of these, international wings. I feel like that's a piece that could be nice to add for them because he's got really good size for a 3-4 kind of like a swing wing. And I do think like his jumper is going to be pretty transitional. He's decent on the catch and shoot. That's probably where he's at his best. And for a team like the Bulls, who are kind of in purgatory right now,
by choice, but
yeah, they were contemplating trading Zach LaVine. They didn't end up doing it this time, but I feel like they are the next team that's on the brink of just blowing it up with DeRozan and LaVine, two guys that, you know, contending teams would probably look at a little bit more in the offseason. If they end up doing something like that, I feel like the fan base wouldn't mind adding a 6'9", super versatile wing that can do a lot of things and has a very high ceiling like a Risacher. But that's kind of just, you know, the top international prospects. Brandon, do you want to add anything?
I was just going to say, I pray for any prospect that ends up on the Bulls because that team
it's been tough recently.
It seems like they're intent on just being meh.
Yeah.
Just want to be meh.
It's like, plus, what are they going to do? Go in the draft? Oh, this is the piece that can send us over the edge. Mm-hmm. Maybe he'll be our guy.
Maybe this is the next Mike. You know, it's tough. It's tough in Chicago. Wouldn't mind Dillingham there, though. That's a fun little projection right there. But if y'all don't have any more, we could probably wrap this one up. This is a pretty long one.
Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you guys coming in and listening to this week's edition of the League Bound podcast. Had a quite a couple interesting takes. Felt like this might have been one of our more divided podcasts, which there is obviously nothing wrong with that. Well, actually, I'm actually going to start our outro here with it, but you can find Leaguebound at _Leaguebound_ on Twitter. We have a YouTube channel. If you found us on here, feel free to subscribe. We'd love it. We got clips, individual videos, and obviously our weekly podcasts. We are also on Spotify, so you can get every single one of these episodes in your audio file. Shut your phone off and drive wherever you need to go to work and stuff. Listen to us there. But last but not least, you can also find all of us on our social media.
You can find me on Instagram at Branden.Blue with 2 E's. And you can find me on Twitter at Branden_Blue25. Don't forget who won the Super Bowl.
Chiefs Kingdom, huh?
Yes, sir.
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Jacob Schrantz on both of them. I'm wearing the Nebraska women's basketball tee today. Shout out Jazz Shelley, taking on Caitlin Clark, hitting that big shot.
Nebraska
massive
had
win.
them going outside, too. The coach was raging,
man.
screaming and shouting.
That was insane.
You can find me on Instagram at CameronK1NG_. You can find me at Twitter at just go to the last episode. It's in the last episode.
It's also in our description.
Yeah, it's in our description.
And I think
you can find all of our social media handles there too.
I think
if you read it, don't ask about it. Just click it.
At the time of recording, I think we're one sub off of 400. So definitely push us above that benchmark. That would be awesome.
And if you're watching and not subscribed, what are you doing?
Real.
Do better.
The Nikola Topic fan account signing out.
Yes.